Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Great to see you at this CalSPRA callback webinar. I am super excited, not just about the callback webinars, because when I'm at the conference, it's very rare that I get to go to an actual session. By the way, I'm Trinette Marquis. I'm your executive director. But especially for Jill, because every time I have been able to pop in to one of her sessions, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, I always pick up something. And more importantly, I laugh. So you're in for a treat today. It's very rare that you could get super, super useful information and also have a good time while you're doing it. So before we get started, I'm going to do my favorite thing, which is embarrass the presenter a little bit by reading their bio and editorializing where I feel like it. So, Jill Wagner, APR, is an experienced and award-winning public relations expert, trainer, and speaker with more than 25 years devoted to serving California's K-12 public schools. In 2015, she opened her own PR consultancy with her primary clients in the education sector, where she provides creative and comprehensive public relations, crisis communications, marketing services, and advises leaders throughout organizations. She loves her career and brings a fun and fresh approach to her talks that allows others to relax and participate as fully as possible. She's an APR, yay, and holds memberships in CalSPRA, NSPRA, and PRSA. She's presented at dozens of conferences around the state and nation, including CalSPRA, NSPRA, ACSA, CSBA, PRSA, American Association of School Administrators, the California State University, and many more. Her PR projects have earned local, regional, and national awards of distinction and excellence from PRSA, NSPRA, CalSPRA, and the Council for Advancement and Support of Education. She's earned Addies and Tellies. She was named Professional Year twice by PRSA and was inducted as a fellow into Fresno State's Department of Media Communications and Journalism, recognizing distinction in her career. Her specialty is crisis communications. She has managed hundreds of crises across a complex range of issues, helping organizations respond appropriately, proactively, honestly, and in support of their mission while repairing any damage to their reputation. As we were talking today, Jill shared with me that her first NSPRA was in 1990 in New Orleans, where we're going to be going today. So this woman has been through it all, seen it all, tackled it all. And you are absolutely going to love what you get to learn today. I also want to make sure that if you're going to NSPRA, or even if you just see her next year at CalSPRA, Jill is super, super approachable. If you're new to the profession, she is a great person to connect with, and I guarantee you will make a friend for life if you jump in and hang out with Jill. All right, did I embarrass you enough?
Yeah, I'm pretty much gonna sign off here.
All right. Jill, are you okay if people ask questions throughout, or would you like them to wait till the end?
Yeah, but if you can help me because when I have two things going at once,
No
I will
problem.
pay attention to neither properly.
No problem. I will monitor the chat. So if you have a question for
Thank you.
Jill, throw it in the chat and then I'll try
She'll
to.
verbalize it because I can't look at the chat. Thank you for those who have their camera on. I appreciate it so much because I can't be funny without faces. Well, yeah, okay, wait. I always think I'm funny and I laugh to myself all the time. And the people around me are looking at me like, she's done. She's done. And I also realized when you read my bio, it sounds like an obituary.
No.
I need to fix that.
You know
I
what
was
you
just
can
thinking, it's
do?
like,
You can run it through AI and say AI, and then you can put like
huh,
the feel that you want it to have.
it will have, yeah, it will have the word actually and genuinely in it
Yeah.
incessantly.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for being here today. Tell me when this ends, Trinette. One is 1 o'clock the stop time.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I will speak quickly. I'm happy you're here. Has anybody ever seen me present? If you have, okay, you poor thing. All right. Anybody else? No hands up, but that's okay. Those of you without cameras, those of you who are, I'm laser focused on you. So Hilda, Julianne, Kelly, hello. Today we're going to talk about your leadership. And whether you realize it or not, you were already a leader. Oh, you know what, Trinette? Remember I was having trouble? There we go. Uh-oh. Let's try this again. Okay. My laptop is turning on me and we're having a little bit of a kerfuffle. And so hopefully it will work through this presentation. But my point with you is you do not need a title change to be a leader because we're already doing the leadership work. We're talking about strategy, we're talking about trust, we're talking about perception, and then we act on that. It's not just theoretical, right? So we're doing it. So my challenge to you is that you don't need to wait for permission to lead. You can own your strategic lane and find ways to amplify what you're doing for the good of yourself, yes, in your career, but also for the good of your organization, because you're a critical cog to it. It's breaking my heart, some of these organizations that, budget cuts, we're looking at communications. And I'm like, in tough times, you need communications more. People need to know how to connect with your organization. They need information. They need tools. That those needs don't go away. And so the people who are small-minded and get rid of communicators is killing me. That's why it's also important, I think, to remind your organization of your relevance and your importance. Why does this matter? Because you're a strategist and you are shaping where the organization's going. You're part of the team. You're part of the leadership team. Whether you have a role at the table or not, whether you're sitting on cabinet or whatever your top meeting group is, your thinking and your work shapes the organization. And we all know that, our trust comes through our credibility and our reputation in the community. And it doesn't take much to lose trust, right? It takes a couple ill-timed responses, some tone-deaf comments, things like that. It doesn't take much to impair trust. So keeping trust front and center, maintaining it so that you can have those good two-way conversations with your communities is key. And, action, we're the doers, right? We're the GSDs, get stuff done, right? And that is good communication drives good decisions. Always, it always does. I just put a post up on last week on LinkedIn of kind of you can't communicate your way out of a bad decision. The problem's the decision, not the communication, right? And so this is where that factors in. What's the challenge? Well, there's a lot, but sometimes we are overlooked. And for strategic advice, we're seen as a support role. It's one of the things we do, like accounting and workers' comp insurance and purchasing. We have communication. Well, yeah, it's integral, but it's also sometimes seen as a support role. So I would challenge you because sometimes we are waiting for permission for somebody to step up to you and say, Julianne, you look like a leader to me because you got the chair for sure. Look at that. You've got the high back, important executive chair. You may as well have the role, right? But it's like we wait for permission. And I will tell you, sometimes we wait for that through positional authority, like we're going to get promoted up to a higher level or a different level. And that's just position because true leadership doesn't matter what your title is. Um, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But sometimes we wait for permission instead of claiming our voice. And sometimes we accept incorrect vernacular for what we do. The writer, the video guy, the photo lady, oh, you're the party person. And you know, we've got to fight back on that stuff. We have to correct people because that's their impression. They see us doing and they assume that's all we do because the visual part of our work, that is what they see, that we're getting video, we're doing photo. And you can say, actually, I'm a strategic communicator, and photos are some of the tools we use to reach people. Videos are some of the ways we use to strategically communicate with this thing. We have events so that people feel included or know what's going on, or we're building culture or whatever it is. But I'd say you correct that. And I know I've at conference, I think I was in, was I at, I think I was at NSPRA and the California group was together and we're going around the room and introducing. And people would say, I'm at this school district and, they call me the video girl and everything. And I heard like three different things along that line. And I was horrified because number one, that person thought that was okay. And it might be okay with them. But communications is so much more than the tools we use, right? And so I think it's really important that we correct people. If somebody's calling you that, or if they're calling you kid or something misogynistic or something, it's like it's within our vocabulary to say, actually, do. There was this guy in okay, Fresno had one, that's where I live, Fresno. Don't be jelly. And there was this mayor we had at a time, and he had a southern accent, even though he just grew up in a farm town near here. But he had been on a TV show called In the Heat of the Night. He was Bubba the sheriff. And so he adopted this persona. And I remember a League of Women Voters one time at a candidates night, they asked him, it's like, where did your accent come from? You grew up in Riverdale. It's just like this. And he goes, oh, darling, my accent is colored by the many places I've traveled. And it's like, I'm thinking, no, you're just holding on to your character for life. And I used to see him, the city worked a lot with the school district when I was there. And we were working on some collaborative stuff. And every time he saw me, he called me sweetheart. And I'm like, well, I let that go sometimes, but I just got tired of the mayor and I said, oh, did you not catch my name and you're embarrassed? And you're just calling me that? Well, no, I use that a lot. And I said, well, my mother didn't name me sweetheart. My mother named me Jill. So could you call me that from now on? I'd be more comfortable. And he just looked at me like, and he didn't call me anything moving on, but I didn't get called sweetheart again. It's just like, so we can teach people the correct vernacular. And I think especially when you're um, supporting your emerging role as a strategic communicator, even if you're part of a team and there is a boss that has a bigger title, your role is much more than those tools you use. So what is the shift? Leadership is using your influence, using clarity, and using courage all combined together. And, I talk a lot with communicators about one of the missing pieces I think that we don't talk about enough is we have RPI. We have the four-step process. We can follow that and it won't let us down. It's solid. Um, but I think the missing element that we don't talk about is courage. It's hard when you're a young practitioner to sit in a meeting and go, I think this is wrong, or I think we're going on the wrong path. It's hard to find your voice, or you assume somebody else in the room is going to say it because there's a bunch of well-paid, smart people here, and somebody's going to point this out for sure. And that doesn't always happen. That's why your voice is so integral, whether you're at the table or not. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I think courage is really important. You can lead from where you sit, right? Let me tell you, I've had on the organization chart as a communicator at one school district, I was as far away from the top as you could be just structurally. I mean, I de facto, reported to the superintendent, but I mean, there was just all these layers and deputies. It was a large school district of 80,000 students, or 80,000 students, 10,000 employees, and the PR team was me and one administrative assistant. So naturally, all I did was crisis communications because, yeah. But it's like when he'd be gone, the deputy superintendent would be in charge, and I was the co-person in charge. By all rights, I shouldn't have been up there, but I was because I was trusted to make decisions and assess situations properly. So you can lead from where you sit. It didn't matter what my title was. It mattered how I moved within the organization. And authority is projected, not bestowed. Now, authority, and I don't mean that draconian, I'm the boss and you have to do what I say. Although I just was talking with my daughter before this meeting about that type of situation she's experiencing at work. And it's like, it's all such theatrics. But authority just means you're a trusted voice, right? But you don't have to be a certain personality type. And so when you're sure about what you say, you have authority. When you're unsure, you don't. But there's nobody that comes along and grants you this. I have this new tool, you guys. Do you see this? Well, let's see if I can do it. The pointer. Do you like it? It's fingers. And I use it as a pointer. It's hard because I have my background screen, so you can't see how ugly my office is. But I'm using that. And I think this will add to my authority. What do you think? It stretches out very long. But this is how I'm using my authority, that and a magic wand. But it's projected, not bestowed. So can I just add one other thing on this, please? And I think I said this at the conference because it struck me. You will never feel ready because ready is not a feeling. Ready is a decision. You just have to do it. It's, Yoda had a lot of knowledge, and there's no try, there's just do. You'll never feel ready, you know? I'm shocked that I've been an adult a really long time, and I still don't want to do adult things. If the dog has a mess on the carpet, I'm
I
looking,
know I'm not ready yet. I have this meeting.
I'm like, who's going to take care of this, And all this stuff, it's like, oh, wait, it's me. I'm the adult. Dang it. Taxes. I don't want to pay taxes. Oh, dang it. But it's like there's certain parts of our lives where it's like we're never going to feel ready, that we just have to do it. How can you start being heard if you haven't been heard before? Well, you start small. You don't just say, I'm taking over this organization. Although I have come to that conclusion at many of mine, it's like, this place is a mess. I'm just going to run it. And I do it in my own way without people even realizing what's happening. But don't overthink it. Think about where you can start with one decision, with one program, with one initiative, and how you can champion that for the good of your organization. You're not doing it for you. Nothing we do is because of us, except, the style of our work. But we're tied into a mission. And I always tell people, as long as you're mission centered, your job is pretty much safe because leaders come and go. And people who are seen as their people, they don't last. But if you're seen as a mission centered person, you can outlast anything pretty much. And that's not a guarantee, but it's like you're thinking bigger and you're thinking, what you're trying to get done and how your organization can stay focused on that. Those of you who are in cabinet, do you ever sit there and go, why are we talking about this so much? Has nothing to do with our real mission. And it's just like, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, we're wasting so much time on this dumb thing. And it's like, because we're off the mission and we need to be focused on it. So don't overthink it. Just start small. Develop alternative methods to convey your thoughts. Sometimes we think we have to make very bold statements, and there's power to that. But if you're starting out, that's hard to do. So the technique that I would suggest that you would start with is asking questions. And not questioning people necessarily, but you're communicating through questions. And one of my favorite ones, I wouldn't say start out with this, but it just is, why is this okay? Somebody explain why we're doing this. Why is this okay on something is like a disaster? I do that. But I would say, have we thought about how this target audience is going to appreciate this? Have we thought about the impact of this? Have we thought about collateral damage? Well, it solves this problem. It creates 73 more. And sometimes you can do it through a questioning method, not because you don't know what you're saying. You're advancing the conversation beyond where people get stuck. I had a district one time, we had I think about a third of our schools were in year-round education at the time. And so that was like 30-something thousand students. And PG&E rates, our energy rates were sky high. And it was summer and it was a hot summer. And they're like, oh, we're getting killed on our budget through the energy costs. How about if we go to a 4-day week? And then we don't have to pay energy costs on that fifth day. We have 3 days off. And they had all talked themselves into this great solution. We're going to do it. We're going to start it in 2 weeks. And I'm like, um, okay. I just have a couple questions. So on this Friday that people are going to be off, where are their children supposed to go? Well, they can go to daycare. I said, okay, there's 30,000 daycare openings now for one day in our town, and people can afford those and access them and get their kid there and get them home. And blah, 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 blah. It's like, bleh. Oh, they'll figure it out. I'm just like, they talk, 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 talk. And I said, I have another question. We're mandated by law to feed them on that day. We have to feed them breakfast and lunch. Just because we're not operating doesn't mean that our food service has to stop. They still need to come to school and get their food. Well, we can do hubs, and people, I said, right, they're going to go 6 miles. It's like, no. Explain that how it's going to work, and da 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 da. We went around and around, and it's like, in the end, it was just like they had all their justifications. I said, I have one more question. Why is this okay? And they couldn't answer it. And I said, I understand the sentiment, I understand the need, I understand everything about it, but we can't do this to people. Plus, we'd have to get our union to sign a letter of agreement in 2 weeks to change their material part of their workday and their work week. It's like, not going to happen. So you can ask questions. Have we thought about this? What about this? Can we consider that? So if you want to start that way. Be positive. Be assured in what you're saying. I used to sit there sometimes in that cabinet and the elephant would be in the middle of the table, stinking it up, thumping, making loud noises, and nobody's noticing this giant elephant in the middle of the table. And I'm like, that's where I had to find my voice because I knew nobody else was coming up with it. Because you are uniquely situated with your experience, your view of the world, your view of your community, the nuanced stuff. You have really great knowledge to share. So be positive about it. Be aware of your body language, right? And how you say things because people are watching you. I had a assistant now who has gone on to do great things. She was amazing, assistant director. And whenever she had an idea, she would go, well, and she put her hand in front of her mouth and do that. It was her nervous tick to do that. And I said, Amanda, you are nothing short of a miracle, perfect person. But I want you to stand for your ideas. And when you put your hand in front of your face, it's showing me that you're nervous about it, but what you have to say has value. So I want you to speak it because we're all here to listen to each other and learn from each other. We're a learning organization. Let's learn. And she started doing that, and people really changed. I noticed how they responded to her differently. She primarily handled social media, but she's a great strategist, brilliant. And she started doing that. So be aware of your body language and shrinking, lean forward, use your posture, make eye contact, and be, assured in what you say. And if somebody asks something you don't know, you just say, like you do with media, I'll have to look into that. Let me consider that. Good point. And also write down your message in advance, what you want to say, because there's a much better chance it will come out of your mouth if you've written. And I would say writing it down in advance will help you with all of your relationships. If you have a tough thing to say with a partner, message control, baby. You don't want to blurt it out, but if you kind of know what you want to communicate and you practice it, not so you sound stiff, but I work with words tumbling out of my head in the proper order. And so I want you to as well. So sometimes writing it down will help it with that. Lead with intention. Start with the why of your work. And I know in the day-to-day workforce and the stuff you have to get done and your deadlines and the stuff you have to produce and the meetings you go to, it's hard to get separated from it's because you get separated from your why. I used to drive to work every day. That was when I was at that big school district, white knuckling it because I knew it was just going to be crisis. And I really wanted to work on the mission, but I would tell myself, what am I going to do today for the mission? What's the one thing I can do how can I advance the work and do that? And I'd have this talk with myself every day so I wouldn't forget because I knew I was going to be distracted. But always remind yourself of the why. You don't have to do it every day, but frequently go back to why in the heck are we here? Why did the heck are these students coming here? Oh yeah, it's important and it helps you lead with your intention. Um, sorry. We talked about mission and set a proactive tone. How can we run around and get ahead of issues, right? How do we make things go away? Turnout and I were talking right before this session about one of my biggest LinkedIn posts was the importance of doing PR for the PR department, that we shouldn't be the least understood department. And we need to tell people what we do and why it's important. And one of those things is this proactive stuff we do. Yeah, we can do an annual report on our department and show the things we produced, the news releases, the coverage we got, the connections on social media, and anything that got traction or went viral, blah, blah, blah. But we also need to report the things we made go away, the stories we killed because we talked the reporter out of it because it was dumb, the little incidents that could have blown up, but we got in there and handled it. We need to take credit for those things. That's our proactive work, but it's not seen. Yeah, when we're opening a school or doing a news conference, they see all of our proactive work. But I mean, it's the core communications work that we do proactively we need to talk about. Your leadership. Now show up with authority. Does that mean you have to wear suits? Heck no, unless you want to. If you like them, that's cool. I'm through that era. I'm in my, I hope it matches era. But I don't know. It's kind of random sometimes, but I'm trying to shop better. Use outcome and impact language. We're going to talk about that. Bring evidence and data. Trinette's brilliant at this in helping you ferret out your data and understand what's important and why. And also, I'm a bit of a data nerd. I love facts. I love it. I love connecting it. It's just so fun. And I'm always so fascinated. But I'm also distracted on the planet because there's a lot of data. So, have that and lead with presence. Be assured in who you are. You do belong there. It's not a fluke you're there. Because you guys remember this, your first interview, you applied, right? And you're on a pile of applications and they sorted through all those. And then you had a first interview where they were assured you could do the job. And then there's probably a second. A second or third interviews are to see if you're fit. It's not because they don't think you can do it. They already know you can. You've passed through those other gauntlets, right? And then they picked you because you were needed. Okay, so lead with that presence. I want to talk a second about, do you guys, have you watched the horse called Golden Tempo? He won the Kentucky Derby from last place to first. He won the Belmont Stakes on Saturday. He was in last. He came to first. Is this a magical horse? Probably. I encourage you to watch the race because it's phenomenal. But it's a combination of his trainer, the jockey, and that horse. And they decided in the pack, I could sit back here and be last or come in fifth, and that's acceptable. But that horse put on the rockets and went to first, getting through traffic, da 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 da. And there was a decision point between that horse and that jockey right there in that moment. And they decided to be first. That's the same thing what you do with the leader. You just decide one day, it's like, I don't want to be last. I want to win this sucker, right? I want my impact, my thoughts to be heard and seen. Okay. So speak with a voice that moves your mission forward. Your narratives are going to be clear that they're focused in your mission, your vision, and your values. I'm working for a great educational organization. It's the only one I know in the country who, in their mission statement, they have the words anti-racist. There's so much inclusion. They never backed off. It's a college system. They never backed off of DEI, even when the president said not to. What was the result? Record enrollment year over year. Record people applying from throughout the country to teach there because that's something they want to be a part of. They didn't back ever off from what their values were. You can balance empathy and clarity. If somebody tells you they're brutally honest, do you have some friends like that? I don't anymore. I disappeared. They say it as it's a badge of honor. I'm brutally honest. You know what? There's never a need to be brutal. You can be compassionately honest and clear, right? You don't have to be mean to get people's attention. That's just an excuse to be mean. You can balance your empathy and clarity. You can say really hard things with a lot of empathy. We know this isn't the outcome anybody wanted, and we agree too, but the best result is this, or we're moving forward this way. You can balance your empathy and clarity because that's what leaders do. You know why? Because you have to face these people tomorrow and the next day and the next year and the next month. They don't go away. Your audience never changes, you guys. Our audiences are technically with us for 13 years, right? Oh, wait, 14, 15. The little 4-year-olds are coming, right? And if they couldn't be any cuter, next we're going to have puppy schools. And I think that'll complete everything for K-12, I think. But, balance your empathy and clarity. Stories over reports. Why does the data matter? And when we're telling a story and sharing, conveying information, I think sometimes we get bored with it. And we're like, oh God, we're saying this again. It takes so many times for messages to be repeated, to be heard, because our brains, you know this, our brains are full of stuff. We have apps we pay for and we don't look at, right? We have maybe magazines or online publications we pay for. We don't have time to read. That's the stuff we choose and we're paying for. We're exchanging money for it. This stuff that's free, it's down the road. So when you're repeating something, that's message control. And the more you repeat it, the more it gets into people's head. You're tired of it, but don't assume your audience is tired of it because it might be the first time they notice. Okay. So stories, why is the information, why does it matter? When we're talking about gifts or grants, it's not the dollar amount, it's the deeds over dollars. What good results because of this money? What's going to happen? And how's it going to affect people in a positive way? And always include a call to action. I think communications messages are falling down now because we're not telling them what we want them to do with the information. People like be all tied into string. Oh, that's great. You too can support scholarships, or if you want to be a part of this program, or we need mentors, put a call to action if it's appropriate, right? So that people know where they can enter your system and be an advocate for you. If you want to know more, go here. We do that really well, but if people want to get involved and do that, we need to show them the route on how. And that's what leaders do, right? They collect people who are supporters. Tools and tactics. I'd always ask when when you're in one of those meetings and they're going on and on, I just say, excuse me, how does this particular project advance our mission? And then smile. Because the ones who know it doesn't, they're going to get mad at you. And that's okay, because you guys weren't that good of friends anyway. Just telling you that now. But it's okay to ask those questions because let's get down to what matters, right? And it's good to have mission-centered conversations and debates that are healthy and fun. There's nothing better. But if we're really off track, a lot of times a community organization will come in with an idea of what schools should do for the community. We're barely hanging on with what the mandates are. Because, the number of instructional minutes required in a day are more than the number of instructional minutes we're paid for. Irony. So it's like, be really careful about, who you're partnering with. You are in a great position to connect the dots nobody else sees. Okay. They might be seeing the issue this way, and you're like, but over here they're talking about this and they're doing that and this and that. We got a bigger issue because in the community this is happening. Connect the dots for people. Don't assume they can connect the dots. We're professional dot connectors and we're really good at it. Okay. So make sure that you are doing that for your organization. When something is really complex, do your best to bring it to clarity. And it's not dumbing it down because the whole purpose of it is giving people information they can use. And in education, we've created barriers between us and our audience. We've created all these fancy acronyms. And does anybody in your organization use the word paradigm? I mean, it's like, a paradigm shift. It's like, oh, shut up. Talk English. I mean, I know it is, but we're educators, so we use a lot of fancy words. And what we've done is we've created a barrier between us and those we want to communicate with because we're addicted to acronyms. We're not addicted to people understanding what we're doing. Well, we can't do the CTC because of the DE and the blah, 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 blah. And that's why. And people are like, I'm supposed to understand this. It's not their job to decode us. It's our job to make it clear so people can understand, so they can engage with us properly and take advantage of all the plethora of services you offer to your families and your students. Claim your seat at the table. I want you to march into the meeting and just take the best chair. I'm just kidding. That's why I love this little illustration of this this chair on rollers, because you could never really sit on this thing with rollers because you'd be going all over the place. But I would remind leadership of the importance of communications at the table. You don't need to be brought in afterwards. You need to be brought in at the birth of the concept of the idea. You need to work it through with the people so that you get the best possible outcome. And you need to keep giving the reasons why. And if they don't give you that, I'll tell you that in a minute. Start where you are. Build allies. If you're not being heard or you don't have the seat, I would find a trusted colleague that I could bring in and say, I'm really trying to elevate the importance of the strategic communications process to do X, Y, Z, all the things we do in comms. I need your voice to help me with that. Sometimes people give you an entree, I really think it's important that Hilda's in this conversation, or we need to refer. Let's check in. You know what? Let's have her come sit in because she needs to. Or if you're in like a cabinet meeting and you're going to forward something you think is going to be a little crunchy for people to handle, they're not going to like it at first because it requires adulting. You might get a loop in a couple of colleagues. Say, I plan to bring this up this time. Here's the reason why. Do you have anything that you could add with it during the conversation? Prepare them so they're not just reacting for the first time. Build your allies to get your small wins. If you find yourself excluded from meetings, you can say, I have insights on this. I have ground level intel. Can I be looped in? Or how can I share my thoughts? What's the best way to do that? How do I stay updated on this information? There's an old fundraising tale or slogan, and it's like, you don't ask, you don't get. All right. I'm talking about claiming, but you can also say you express your need like, How can I be looped in? Where can I contribute to this conversation? This is a really important issue. I heard you're working on this. I have some thoughts on that. Could I sit in at the next meeting? No? Okay, well, who can I send them to? I'll send them to the team. I mean, there are a lot of ways to start. This is just the starting thing. And use strong language, you know? I propose, here's how I see. One way we could get a win would be that, this, lay it out. Based on all the information I'm seeing, I think the likely outcome is this, blah, 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 blah. One of the things I love doing, because when they didn't want to handle issues, it's like, I would say, if we do this, if we do this, and if we do this, here are the outcomes. And then they'd say, well, let's just see how this goes. We're not going to do anything now. And I'm like, okay, that is a choice. Doing nothing is a choice. And doing nothing will lead us here. Are you prepared to do that? And I had to talk to a leader a couple months ago. So I really think I'm going to do this and this and da 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 and blah blah blah. And I'm questioning, and they said, "What do you think?" And I said, honestly, I think you will have 2 more weeks in that organization, and they will show you out. Why? Da, 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 da. And it was like they were having some ego challenges, and I helped them through that. But it was like you gotta say what it is. People need to be prepared for the whole range of outcomes. And so you can use that strong language to get there. If you're interrupted in a meeting, that happens sometimes. People get excited or they talk over you. Say, I'd like to finish my thought. They're talking. Let me continue where I was. I'm going to pick up right back where I was talking before I was interrupted. Now, I tend to, I try not to be because I really am cognizant. I have a bit of ADHD. And the reason we interrupt, it's not an excuse, but it's like we're afraid we're going to lose the thought. It's going to go. And so we're like, jump in with it. So I speak at the end of the discussion usually. I wrap up what everybody's saying. I give my recommendations. So then I'm actively listening as best I can. But don't be afraid to call out when people interrupt you because that's not okay. Okay, we're going to talk about speaking with authority. This is where your voice, your leadership, and this is you developing your own leadership style too. So here's some things that you can do. You can lead with shared values. As we all agree that we want the first graders to be on, reading at this and this and this. And taking away their reading time so that they can do soccer is, blah, blah, blah. But you want to bridge. You want to lead with what your common thoughts are, because then everybody's like, we're solidary, we're with you. Yes. And then you can bridge to what you have to speak about. When you're bringing to this group, you do not want to bring just information. You want to bring solutions. There are many ways we can approach this. One of the things we could do is this. One of the things we could do this, or we can do nothing. And I think the results will be this. Okay. Bring solutions. Let me tell you, leaders often, I've worked with tons of leaders in corporate and nonprofit and government and education. And the one thing I'm struck with, it's like a family unit. Some big time titled person will go into the leader and go, Trinette's being a jerk and blah, blah, blah. And her staff always like is, they're making us look bad and all that and blah, 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 blah. And it reminds me of like the kid telling on the sibling, like, Dad, Mom, they're not playing nice and I don't like it. And they're venting. And I'm shocked at how many times high-level people just go in and vent with the leader, but don't bring a solution. They're just, and they dump it on leaders. You'd be shocked how much that happens. So when you bring solutions, you are refreshing. You've thought it through. You're giving them options so they know the groundwork is done. Speak in conclusions and not observations. And I'm going to give you some examples that I wrote down because I wanted to get into this more. An observation is, here's what I know. A conclusion is, here's what it means. Okay. Observation is, here's what's happening. Conclusion is, here's what we should do about it. Because anybody can report facts, anybody in the organization. Like you say, we've gotten a large number of complaints. People aren't happy. But reframing that to conclusion, the volume and consistency of complaints suggests this is affecting our reputation and we need to be proactive about this. We need to jump in now. A lot of people, I said, don't connect the dots. They walk into meetings, they dump information. It's like a problem party. And leaders don't need another data dump. They got plenty of that. They need help understanding what that information means and why it's relevant. And that's where you come in. So um, I think the step to leadership isn't just here are the three options I've identified. That's great. That's a good start. But what you should be doing, possibly to be a leader, is here are the three options. I recommend option two because it best supports our goals and mission, minimizes risk. I think option two is the best way to go. Now, they can disagree and debate and all that stuff, but you put it out there because certainty is not the goal that you're the perfect person and going to get it right all the time. It's the best path forward based on the information and data you have right now. And that's what you're recommending for the good of your organization. So it's observation, what it means, and then your recommendation. So you want to speak in conclusions. Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a lot of pitchforks and torches at the board meeting. Sounds fun. Woo, everybody wear their fireproof suits. That's great, but that's not helpful. Speak in the conclusions. I saw it. Um, be plain and direct. Be clear. People don't have people don't want their meetings to be longer. You need to be as clear as possible with as much detail as possible, but also being clear and plain and direct. Tie your message to strategy and a clear call to action. We talked about that. That's easy to do. And it will actually clean up the work in your organization, or your department. Sometimes we get in a habit, like we bring messaging from last year up to this year and just kind of refresh it. And I say just spend some time weeks before and look at that and see if you can do it in a different way. Because when we do that rock and roll, we're just going to repeat stuff. We sometimes miss things, but the worst thing we miss is opportunity, the chance to make it better, the chance to reach a new audience, the chance to refresh it. Because if we're tired of it, they might be too. Frame your message in your audience's wording, so that you don't want to be the paradigm people, right? You don't want to use all the acronyms. You want to be relevant to their worldview. And remember, we're talking to target audiences because communicating to everyone is communicating to no one. So, be aware of that and find your own voice and pacing. You'll watch other people around the table with their styles, their communication styles and everything, and find your way because that is the right way. Some of us are soft spoken. I'm not a cheerleader type. I think I'm hysterical, funny, but not everybody agrees, and that's okay. Not everybody's going to like me. I'm not chicken fingers. Everybody likes chicken fingers. That's not me. But it's like find your voice, find your pacing, find your footing. And it's not going to be like everybody else's, and it shouldn't be. You'll see some people, I still watch some people put words together, and I'm like, I want to be like them. That is amazing. They're great. Now, I admire it. I work on getting my words together in that way, but I'm not going to be them because there's only one of you for all time. So be yourself. Lead with intention. Start with your why, align your actions and your values, and do that early. Don't wait till the end of the meeting, right? Or the end of the project. Set it early. Because one thing I have in my crisis work, the one thing I do, I don't know that anybody else does. I spend 30 seconds or a minute saying, I talk about the outcome. How do I want this to go? Yeah, there could be a building on fire and evacuations and bombs and whatever. I've done all that. I just think, what do I want to have happen? What do I want the goal to be? I want everybody to trust us. I want everybody to be safe. I want to bridge this back to our mission or how this is a one-off or whatever. If you just do that for 30 seconds, you guys, then you will make decisions to support what you want to get done. Because you have told your brain, I'm looking out for this. So you will make decisions, come to conclusions based on the outcome. So set your tone early, come up with your mission, your goals early, and adjust them as you need to, because the world changes constantly. Ask reflective, future focused questions. It's so easy to be stuck in now. Like if we do this, well, how's this going to happen with the class coming in or the employees here or what have you? A lot of our organizations do the most boring employee onboarding known to man, and people get there and question their life choices, right? Because it's boring. It's like we want people to engage with us at all ways. How do we do that? We do that by asking questions. How can we do this differently next time? What do we think that people are getting their information this way? How can we be out ahead of that? That type of thing. And pause before responding. Listen. Take that info in for a second, pause before responding. You'll notice a lot of really great leaders do that. They're like, they're taking it all in and they're running it through their little microcomputer in their head. Ideas for elevating your leadership. Start small, pilot projects. Say there's an initiative you want to do and you think it's fantastic. And people are like, no, I don't know about that. No, I'm not sure. And I don't think that's a great idea and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Start with a pilot project. So I'm going to take this amount of money. I'm just going to do a small thing to test. Then you execute your project in a small way. Then you have data. And you can come back and say, this was a fantastic success. I think we should operationalize it further. It's really hard to argue with that because you have data. You have receipts. You're not guessing. You executed it through a pilot way. Pilot projects, almost every leader will join on in. I did this. I got out of after a media firestorm and this crisis that went on for 2 years. I had to leave the school district I was at. I was done. And I went to a job where I had no media relations. And I'm like, yes. It was for a private company. And one of the things we were doing with a really big client, we wanted to do this big wide scale program, but they were kind of risk averse. So we said, could we just take this little bit of money and do a pilot project? So we took like $20,000. We did the pilot, executed it, showed them the data. They were salivating over it because their regulatory authority was like, oh, we want that. That $20,000 turned into a $15 million contract within like weeks. That's like, here's some money, do it. So pilot projects are powerful. Develop community partnerships. You don't have to do all this stuff alone, all the communicating to your target audiences. There are nonprofit organizations that are doing that. There's community agencies. Create partnerships that they expand your communications. And in doing that, you're expanding your mission. Create of the day programs. There's principal of the day, right? But what about superintendent of the day, noon aid program, bus driver? You can have all that update. Give people a view of your district, right? Because you can never replace that experience. They will remember it forever. They'll forget the brochures and the things we told them, but the experiences get into the fabric of your brain and you remember that. So there's some bring info and data to life. Don't just have boring reports. Talk about what happened because of them. Do infographics that are engaging, not just pie charts, stuff like that. Um, Build recognition programs. You're in a great position to recognize lots of people, and you can make up any award you want. The school board award for most consistent, um, whatever, volunteer who shows up. It could be for people, it could be for businesses. Because when you make awards and recognition programs, and if you're going to do certificates, two things. No lines on the bottom for signatures. The lines go away in third grade. If you have lines on your certificates, I want you to swear you're going to take them off because if adults can't sign without a line, we got a bigger problem, kids. And then take your certificates that you're awarding and put them in frames so they get hung up. Otherwise, we all have drawers full of certificates that never go anywhere. But if it's framed, they're going to hang it in their business. It's going to be a talking point. It's going to be, hey, what's that? Oh, the school district gave me this for this. Or, and they can be fun. I do this whole thing on recognition programs because we're not taught how to show gratitude. And I think it's an important thing to teach. So build a recognition program. Rethink boring things. Does something make you crazy in your district? It's okay. You're in a safe place. You can say yes. Rethink it. How can it be less boring, right? What can we do? How can we be engaged? How do we make it fun? We took a kindergarten registration I was at with this one district a couple of years ago, and we made it family-oriented hootenanny, because they were showing up on the first day of school, and that doesn't help us plan. And all these kids are like, where'd you come from? Surprise. And so we were doing it early, and we had book giveaways and we had baby goats and you name it, anything to attract people. But we had this big fancy fun event and we got more registrations than ever. So rethink boring things. Make friends everywhere. It doesn't have to be in your field. It could be your neighbors. Anytime I've worked in a big building, I've walked next door to neighbors. Hey, I work at such and such school district. What do you guys do here? Blah, 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 blah. We're neighbors. Well, if you ever need anything from the school district, let me know. I wander around and talk to people. At trade shows, I go talk to everybody. I work my booth, but then I wander around and say, yeah, I'm the school district and da 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 da. It's important to have these contacts because you never know how they're going to come back and benefit you. And you know what? As much as a blessing they are to you, you're a blessing to them too. The words we use, minimize complaining. Don't go into meetings and say, this again. Or it's like, so-and-so's doing that again. It's like, take care of it. Watch your negative talk because it's really easy to get, known as being a negative person. Replace have to with get to. I have to go to the grocery store and then I have to go to the dentist and I have to prepare this annual report. I get to go to the grocery store and I can buy whatever I want because I have a salary and I can do that. I get to go to the dentist because I have health insurance and I know a lot of people don't. And I get to prepare this report so people can understand our district. It's a small shift, but it's a shift in your brain from have to get to is powerful. Say yes. There's a book about, I have it here somewhere. Say yes. This woman spent a year saying yes to everything, new experiences, new friend groups, accepting invitations. Her world got a lot bigger. There were still things she didn't like, but she gave herself a chance to say yes. Say yes to new assignments. One time when I was handling communications for a school district, I ended up handling communications, foundation. I've got in charge of testing and I was in charge of transportation because I was a problem solver. Now, I did leave because handling transportation is hard. But, I learned a lot. I said yes, and I got experience I wouldn't have. Give choices. Always present multiple options. Say, here's the one logo we can go with. They're trying to make a platypus, especially when you're doing branding and logo, and they a little piece of this and that. It's like you want to stand your ground, but you always want to give choices and have multiple solutions. Nobody likes being backed into a corner. Nobody likes being told exactly what to do. When you're thinking about your leadership, really be honest with yourself. When did you really back off from something? Was it the people or was it the situation? So really reflect on that. When did you shrink? Decide what are you going to claim today? I really used to claim I'm in charge here, and as a result of that, I'm going to do XYZ. I didn't go run into somebody's office and take it over. I was just like, that was how I colored my work. What do I want to claim for the day to get done? And what tactic am I going to do this week to improve my leadership? Enhance it, show that my voice matters. Here's some great, this is a book on the Toltec religion, but I think it's a communications book. I tell everybody to read it. It's called the Four Agreements, and here are the four agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Always. You only have one reputation. Speak with integrity. Do not take anything personally, you guys. When something doesn't work in communications, we personalize everything. We can't because nothing other people do is because of you. It's because of them. It's their reaction, their wiring, whatever. But if you cannot take anything personally, you have freedom in life and freedom in career. Don't make assumptions. Ask the questions. Find out what is. And I always say, is it what you know or what you think you know? Right? Totally different thing. Make sure you know, not what you think you know. We're all preloaded with lots of assumptions and guesses and all this stuff. And so make sure you know. So find the courage to ask questions, right? And the nice thing about education, we're in a learning environment. We should be able to learn as we go. And we should, as practitioners, be lifelong learners and be curious about all kinds of stuff, right? Always do your best. It will change from moment to moment, but just do your best, commit that to yourself. And I love that. I think it's a great way to run a PR practice. It's influenced me greatly. Oops, especially the other part about I really had to learn. I'm still working on it, not taking anything personally, but I'm way better than I used to be. And life is good because it really wasn't about them. And you learn that with age. You get a certain age, and all the things you're worried about people thinking about you and your work, they weren't thinking about you at all. They were thinking about them because that's their filter. There's two people who are really great. I think you can learn from Molly McPherson. I should put APR. She's a crisis communications expert. She has a Substack and she has lots of great articles to get you thinking about PR approaches and all the basics. So I really enjoyed learning from her. And then there's an attorney from Texas named Jefferson Fisher, and he talks about how to handle when somebody says something rude to you. What do you do when you're talked over in a meeting? What happens if somebody interrupts you? And he has these great common sense um, videos. He's on Insta, he's on TikTok and everything. He's great. You can learn from him. And so I really recommend that. And then if you want to get in touch with me, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's me, Jill Wagner, APR. I'm starting a new venture called Your PR Toolbox. If you go to that yourprtoolbox.com, I'm just sending out weekly PR tips. And last week's was you can't communicate out of a bad decision. It's just stuff I'm thinking about PR. There's no sales funnels. It's just my thoughts, and they're going to be there through email. I'll email them to you if you're interested in that. And then I'll do it every week. And some you'll like and some you'll go, well, that's weird. But our practice of PR is pretty expansive with the world. So I try to, acknowledge that when I'm doing that. So I'm stopping. We have a few minutes. Any questions at all? Or anything you want me to go on? Anything? I will not
You gave us
beg.
a lot to think about, Jill. I think people are still like processing.
You have, do you have this presentation? You know what? I wrote a little book on it because there was so much to say on this, and I've been talking on this subject. It's an online booklet. Trinette, I'll get it to you. Then can you share it?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll send it out with a recording.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll get it to you. You guys, I'm on interview panels today and tomorrow. I had to step off on this one. 16 people yesterday and 16 people today
Oh,
for a
wow.
marketing job. It's Zoom, but I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
20 minutes, 8 questions. Tell us everything about you. So it's like, but I will get that to you, Trinette, probably at the end of the day today.
Okay. Okay, no worries.
Any other
Um,
questions or anything you want to talk about? You want to gossip about somebody at your workplace? Let's do it. Because we don't know them and you're safe.
could
I
always
must
reach
also
out
say
for
lean on others, and get mentors. I have what I call my board of directors. These are senior PR people I've known forever. And it's like when I'm really sorting out something, I lay it all out and then I send it to them. I'm like, or I talk to them saying, I'm doing this, da 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 da. What do you think? Am I missing anything? Because I just like to have that dialogue. I'm a consultant. I work alone, and I'm pretty sure about my skills at everything, but it never hurts to have another perspective. Have you thought about this? Or I heard this and seeing how it's landing. So, it's really good to have that too, because that's how we all get better is learning from each other, you know, and
Mhm.
and don't be ageist. There's some people way older than you that don't know a whole lot but have good titles, and there's some people way younger than you who don't have the title that are brilliant. And I really believe this next generation is going to save us, the ones that are in 20s right now. I think they're going to save our planet and save us. So I'm super encouraged. But it's like you can learn from everywhere, anything, anytime. So cultivate those. Trinette, do you have any questions? I have my pointer. I will call on you.
I I honestly I didn't have questions. There were
Okay.
just a lot of things. The way that you put things were things that I kind of knew, but you just have such a great way of putting them into like a succinct slogan, if you will, as opposed to just kind of having this feeling of what we know. And what I loved about your session is, this profession, it's always frustrating for me, as its biggest advocate in California, that so many of our professionals don't get the credit and the value that they deserve. Um, I don't think that people understand how much communicators add to the organization. It's
Mhm.
sort of like if you think about the iceberg in the Titanic, they see, the video, the social media, the little things at the tippy top, but they don't know necessarily that talked someone out of 30 negative stories over the course
Yeah.
of the year, or because you provided the context. They don't know that you created, 10 new partnerships in the community that brought in more resources and connections for our students and our staff. So there are all kinds of things that our PR pros are doing, across the state that just don't often get recognized because we're horrible about
PR for the PR department.
exactly the cobbler's shoe.
I did a LinkedIn post about PR for the PR department, and you can go look at it was a couple months ago. But after I spoke at CalSPRA, and earlier that week I'd spoken at the Small School Districts Association, and I was like, people are not talking about what they do. We need to do a PR, make sure you're doing an annual report for your department, even if you're a department of one. Talk about your wins. If you want to talk about social media and your all that stuff and your media
Hmm.
coverage and all this stuff, but talk about the things you made go away, the problems
Hmm.
you got involved with before they got big that you handled,
Hmm.
the dumb stories you talked reporters out of, the
Yeah.
customer service you provided, the partnerships you connected. Don't take that stuff for granted because I guarantee you, you're the only one in your organization doing that. And people
Yeah.
need to know that. And, come up with
Hmm.
a structure for it. Here's this, things we made, things we handled before they came bigger problems, stories we talked people out of because they weren't true, whatever. But it's like, you got to take credit for that and then share it with your leadership, with your
Hmm.
board, because the stuff we do brings pride to our organization. And we need to talk about that. You're a pride point. When you get awards, right? When you speak at a conference, you're a pride point. When the things you learn and the things you bring back. And it's not about vanity, you guys. It's about visibility. The same thing we do for everybody else. We don't need to be the least understood department in the organization. And people are like, who are you? It's like, who are we to not, right? Because the more people we engage, the better it is for our organization. And
Mhm.
that happens to be our job, our function. So talk about it. But that's a big fat leadership thing to do is talking about annual report. Start small. You can do a quarterly, you can do a big one, but I would just let people know, this is what's going on. And I'll tell you, at that big school district, I talked 60 minutes out of coming. I talked major media organizations. We heard this and this and that. And so I talk and talk until my tongue was going to fall out. And they're like, yeah, there's nothing here. And then I'd say, oh, call this school district. No, but it's like, it took a lot of time and it would have done some damage because people only
Yeah.
half listen and they
Hmm.
conflate you with issues, right?
Hmm.
And, I think that's important to do. Talking people out, just because your school is the geographic center of the neighborhood and a crime happens, don't use our school as the geographic center to give people context. Say on the corner of Elm and Pine, it's like quit pulling us into the community or things that we have nothing to do with, crime and all that. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do, and I think we need to take credit for it. And don't feel weird about it. This is what everybody else is doing, you guys. Everybody else is doing it. So I'm a big believer. I might even talk about that at CalSPRA this year. That might be my topic
Yeah.
if you think there's
PR for the
interest,
PR pro. I like it.
Yeah, I really, the tougher budget times come, we're needed more than ever,
Hmm.
and we want to engage people and have them access great public education, and so
Agreed.
that's through you guys. So yeah, I'll send you
Well,
my book.
thank you so much, Jill.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
it's
Nice to
been
see
fantastic.
everybody.
Whatever you send, yeah, whatever you send over, we'll make sure that we get out to everyone. I
Okay.
put a few things in the chat. There's a feedback form, so you could go onto that form and tell us how amazing you thought Jill was. As Jill mentioned, we're pretty data-driven at CalSPREC. So in that feedback form, we collect data about all of the professional development activities that we're offering at CalSPREC. I also put the white paper link in the chat. If you haven't heard about it, is basically the written version of what Jill talked about today, bringing out some of the invisible work of school PR people. And based on the data we collected across California, it has recommendations for what size PR teams should be based on the size of your school district, what salary should be, different kinds of job descriptions. So that's a good one to make sure you check out and share with your leadership team. And then the third link that I shared in the chat is our next Casper callback webinar. It is Forgotten Voices, a guide for increased staff and family voice on communication and collaboration. And the link for more information and to register is the third one that you see there. Thank you again, Jill. This was fantastic. And I just really appreciate how generous you always are. I mean, you always say yes to CalSPRESS, so we're
I
grateful.
always will because, my greatest friends in my life have come through CalSPRA. The greatest blessings in my life have been through the connections with school communicators. So, and you guys take time off this summer. I'm not kidding. You know what? They will live for a week or two without you. Please, please, please take time off. There's nothing that can't wait. Yeah, you have deadlines. They'll always be there. That's why you have a job, but please take your time off in the summer, escape,
Agreed.
treat yourself.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the oxygen mask in the airplane. Make sure you get your oxygen so that you can come back rejuvenated for the
Help
school
others.
year. Hmm.
Exactly. Great. Thanks very much,
All right.
everybody.
Take care, everyone.